Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Claire Broughton, and today we'll be discussing the last part of my lecture, which is on other related offenses for crimes against persons. The first related offense is bullying. What is bullying? It involves any unwanted aggressive behaviors by a youth or by groups of youths who are not siblings or current dating partners. And it also involves observed or perceived power imbalance, and it is repeated multiple times or is likely to be repeated. No single profile fits all bullies. Youth who both bully others and are also bullied themselves are at the greatest risk for subsequent behavioral, mental health, and academic problems. Types of participants in the bullying circle. First, students who want to bully and initiate the action. Second, followers who take active part but do not initiate bullying. Third, supporters or passive bullies. Fourth, passive supporters or possible bullies. Fifth, disengaged onlookers. Six, possible defenders. And seven, active defenders. Awareness of the problem of bullying has increased recently, and rates are declining, but it's still prevalent. It's a serious problem in schools, especially high schools and middle schools. Potential bullies are more deterred by the threat of punishment from parents in schools, and they are least deterred by the threat of police punishment. What is cyberbullying? Is the willful and repeated use of electronic communication devices to harass and threaten others. The core elements are the same as traditional bullying, namely repetition, intent, physical, emotional, or psychological harm, and imbalance of power. It also varies by gender, and females are at the greatest risk of victimization. They're typically more emotionally affected by cyberbullying. There is no federal anti-bullying law, and bullying itself is not illegal. Now let's look at workplace violence. This includes murder, rape, robbery, and assault committed against persons at work or on duty. It's also a significant problem in the United States today. And police experience workplace violence at rates higher than any other occupation except bartenders. College university professors are among the least likely to be victimized. There are four main categories of workplace violence. First, violence by criminals with no other connection to the workplace. Second, violence directed at employees by those the organization serves. Third, violence against workers by present or former employee. And fourth, violence by someone with a personal relationship with an employee. For example, first category, violence by criminals with no other connection to the workplace. If an offender, for example, goes to Walmart and starts shooting people in Walmart or any shopping mall, and he's not connected, he doesn't know anyone in Walmart, that would be the first type of workplace violence. Second type of workplace violence. Let's say in a doctor's office, if a former patient who is unsatisfied or dissatisfied by the services given by a doctor in that doctor's office proceeds to the doctor's office and starts shooting or assaulting someone in that office, that would be type 2 violence. Type 3 violence, violence against workers by present or former employee. An example would be if a former faculty, let's say in Texas A&M San Antonio, who's dissatisfied or angry with like maybe an administrator or a supervisor, and goes back to Texas A&M San Antonio and starts assaulting a supervisor, that would be type 3 workplace violence. And finally, number 4, violence by someone with a personal relationship with an employee. Let's say the spouse of a staff member in Texas A&M San Antonio is angry because that staff member filed for divorce against that spouse, and the spouse goes to the Texas A&M San Antonio office where that employee is located and assaults that person. That would be type 4 workplace violence. Is it clear, class? Okay, good. Figure 11-10 shows the rate of violent workplace victimization by job. Okay, first, we see that bartender is the most likely to be victimized. Second, law enforcement officer. Third, security guard. Fourth, corrections officer. And then all the way down, we see that a college professor and a preschool teacher has the lowest rate of violent workplace victimization. Now, let's look at hate crimes. Hate crimes are crimes motivated by hatred, bias, or prejudice based on the actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation of another individual or group. Even if the offender is mistaken as to the race or ethnicity or the gender or sexual orientation of the victim, if the offender was motivated by that, then it's still a hate crime. For example, and this is one key scenario given in a book on criminal law. Let's say members of a white supremacist group who target LGBT individuals went to a bar, to a known bar or club where LGBT frequent, and they see someone enter that particular club. Then when that person leaves the club, they start to assault that person. Since they were motivated because of the perceived sexual orientation of that person, they could be liable for hate crime, even if it turns out that the person who entered that club and who they assaulted was merely there to sell like speakers, okay, and or other paraphernalia or um, utensils or equipment needed in that particular club. Hate Crime Statistics Act of 1990 mandated collection of data on hate crimes motivated by religious, sexual orientation, ethnic, or racial prejudice. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 added crimes motivated by biases against people with disabilities. Hate crimes are also known as bias crimes, and they can include violent and property crimes. In 2009, President Obama signed into law a bill that added acts of violence against gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people to the list of federal hate crimes. In fact, the majority of hate crimes are motivated by racial bias. Okay, now let's go to stalking. Stalking is a course of conduct directed at a specific person that involves repeated visual or physical proximity, non-consensual communication, and or verbal, written, or implied threats, or a combination thereof that would cause a reasonable person to fear. Basically, all states and the federal government have anti-stalking laws. What we need to remember is that stalking is a repeated pattern of behavior. There has to be repetition. It shouldn't have occurred once. Anti-stalking laws consider the totality of the circumstances. The extent of stalking. Stalking acts may not be criminal individually, but collectively and repetitively, they may cause victims to fear for their safety or the safety of a family member. The most common reasons victims are perceived as the cause of stalking include retaliation, anger, spite, and desire to control the victim. There are several types of stalkers: rejected stalkers, intimacy-seeking stalkers, incompetent suitors, resentful vendetta-motivated stalkers, and predatory stalkers. Victim-offender relationships in stalking. Majority of the victims are women, and majority of the stalkers are men. Most victims are between ages 18 to 39, and most victims know their stalkers. In fact, women are more likely to be stalked by an intimate partner, and men are more likely to be stalked by a stranger or an acquaintance. Stalking in intimate partner relationships. Intimate partner stalking can occur before and after the relationship ends. Other forms of violence often accompany stalking. Men who stalk their former wives were more likely than non-stalkers to engage in emotional abuse and controlling behavior towards their wife. What are the causes of stalking? They negatively affect the victims' lives, who become increasingly concerned about their personal safety. They also have the need for counseling and also time lost from work, and they need to administer or take extra self-protective measures. Women are more likely to report stalking to the police than men. Cyberstalking is a form of stalking that uses technology, including email and internet, to harass or follow other individuals. Recommendations to help control cyberstalking include review of state stalking laws to ensure that they include provisions for cyberstalking, amendments to federal laws, training for law enforcement, and a website with cyberstalking information made available to the public. Thank you very much for listening to my lecture on other related offenses. I hope you learned a lot from the four interrelated lectures on Chapter 11. I'll see you during my next lecture.